Hello, and thanks for listening. So I saw this article to be very interesting, and I feel like they're a little late because I noticed some very key things that were going on with this whole drama behind the Parkland incident. And when they started within the part where they started to debate, reading Black students from Parkland say that they have been left out of the gun control debate. And so I noticed that when it first started out, they didn't have you didn't see the Black students come to the forefront until people started putting out videos or complaining or commenting about, you know, the gun where there are Black people and they don't have this outcry on the issues of gun violence, especially with police brutality and Black people being gunned down. And that's a current issue. That I've noticed is that in the beginning, all of the students that were in the forefront were white, and they were featured on the cover of Time magazine, the ones who were raising the issue of gun control. Faces change where it was no longer all white. They put a few Black students in there to raise a fist or to be present or to put them in the forefront. And so if you look at the older articles, like from before, prior to the Black faces coming, the Black people coming in there, it was like the white kids were at the forefront, and you only seen the white children or the white teens. And then when people started to question this and say, well, what kind of school is it? What location is it? What's the percentage of ethnicities at the school? And, you know, people start to want to know more things about the students, more things about what happened, how it occurred, who were the key players. And so in the beginning, it seemed as though there were only white kids there. And then all of a sudden, when people started complaining and saying, oh, just happened in one area, it happens in many East or their Black communities, those neighborhoods, pretty much the same types of incidences happen, maybe far worse incidences, and it's looked at it's as it's their problem. It's a local matter, not the White House's problem. So this article goes into Black students from Parkland say they have been left out of the gun control debate. So on Wednesday, just days after the March of Our Lives, a group of Black students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida, held a press conference to declare that their worries about the future of gun control are being overlooked both by the press and by lawmakers. Now, all of the people in the Time cover, all of those students were white. And then one of the girls had her shoes off. And the way they were standing, it looked like as if you were looking at a magazine cover displaying some trendy clothesline or a group of kids that might have been getting ready for some kind of show or something like that. It looked more modelly type, more like, look at us, like more, it didn't seem like it was more about the issue as it was about the trend of it all. And that's what that display gave off when I saw it. And then I noticed that in the beginning when it started out, you only, the white students doing most of the talking and standing in the front. And so it raises the questions like, where are the Latin students? Where are the Black students? Where, did they have any diversity in the school? And people want to know all. And then it also raises the questions as if there are Black students, aren't they important as well? Why is it that most of the snapping of the pictures and whatnot is always this same group of kids? And then I did go over an article that was read that there had been a kid that had came forward and said that the shooter kid was bullied by some of the very kids that are standing in the front promoting the March of Our Lives, and nobody's really focused on those issues as well. And so there were rebuttal articles, but I would suspect that there's something not being told here. There's a lot of things not being told. So on Wednesday, just days after the March of Our Lives, a group of Black students from Marjorie Stone and Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, held a press conference declaring that their worries about the future of gun control are being overlooked by both the press and lawmakers. So who were all these Black kids that were at the March of Our Lives standing in front? Obviously, if there were a few, so those must not be the ones that are talking right here in this article. So I believe there's some covering up, some people that are intimidated too to speak out, because that same group of kids who were bullying are probably using this whole thing as well, if you say anything about him being bullied and you're not on our side, then it could happen to you. So they're probably hesitant about even coming forward and speaking out and adding more information about this whole incident. So if you didn't hear about it, you're not alone. Only an estimated 8 local media outlets covered the event. Exactly. So I suspect that not everybody is see, you see this one African American girl in this photo, but she didn't come out until a lot later, because in the beginning you didn't really see too many, kids of color until they had this huge march, and then people started asking the questions. So while the students who spoke at the conference did not want to take away from the work that is being done by the fellow student activists like Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg, these MSD Marjorie Stoneman Douglas high school students are asking for equal representation in the media. I knew this was coming, because I don't know if anybody paid attention, but like I said, on that Time cover of the Stoneman Douglas incident, the key players that they put out there on the cover were all the white kids. Like, you would assume, okay, this must be an all-white school. There are no Black kids that go there. But then shortly thereafter, people started questioning about all of the things that are going on in smaller Black communities. Here these Black kids come forward out of nowhere. Now you're starting to see them. And when they have this march, you see this girl here, and notice she has her fist up. And so I feel like somebody told them, you must do that, because there's a lot of people asking questions as to who is going to the school, what kids are attending the school. Come they didn't ask other students what their feelings were. The other issue, I'm going to go one further, is students who are for guns. You're just seeing you were seeing the group that were saying they wanted to eliminate guns, but there were some students who actually were in support of gun rights and in support of people Second Amendment. And those kids are being left out as well. So I want to add that in there because I saw an article about that, and there was one kid that was speaking out, and he's probably going to get teased or blackballed or ostracized just the same. Hopefully they don't do that, but it could end up being that way unless he has a following of other students to help support him in what his beliefs are in terms of that debate, what his position is in terms of the debate. And so it says here that around 11% of the Stoneman student body is Black. See, notice they had to put that in there. So, but the media's coverage of the student activists was barely reflected the reality. So when I was following it, I noticed that they didn't, in the beginning, they didn't show, you didn't see any Black kids coming forward saying it. It's, the assumption that the media gave you is that no Black kids go there. They don't have a say-so in the matter, how they feel about it, especially some kids who might have family members that may come from other neighborhoods who experience gun violence daily. You know, what are their thoughts about it? You didn't see that. And so the Black Lives Matter movement has been addressing the topic of gun violence since the murder of Trayvon Martin in 2012. And we have never seen this kind of support for our cause. We surely do not feel that lives of or voices of minorities are valued as much as those of the white counterparts, said a student activist, Taya Amo Roberts. And so the students also feel that the increased police presence in their school since the shooting could actually put Black students at a greater risk for something, say, is overlooked in media coverage. And so it is estimated that the 3 police officers suffer from undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder, Kai Kobera explained. So the mentally ill police officers are tasked to safeguard a traumatized student body, what becomes a recipe for disaster. Police need to stand on the perimeters of our school. So those chosen to work at the school should receive PTSD counseling and special diversity training on top of that. So stats back up the student worries as well. According to Washington Post 2017, police across the country shot and killed 1,000 people. So 19 of those people were unarmed Black men, but the others that were shot were believed to be or have been armed with either a gun or a weapon. Overall, nearly 22% of those killed by police were Black men, yet Black men only make up 6% of the entire population of the U.S., making this type of death by police disproportionately high among Black men. Ni-Ling Ho-Shing, a student who has been working with Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz for an assault weapons ban, added, "We are proud to say that we are from Stoneman Douglas High School, and we are proud to say that those who are at the front are doing a great job, but we have so much to say too." So these are some of the survivors, and there's a battle right now with a host named Laura Ingraham, and I think maybe her show was canceled because she said some things that were not very, very nice to one of the students, and so it's created a lot of back and forth backlash, and so that's pretty much the article. And so here's the kids pictured, and then this is what blew me for, like, you finally, and you see there's one African American male student, and you can't really see his face, but the girl, she's in the front, and then you see another student right there, and then you see like what looks like maybe he could be a teacher or staff member in the back. He's already maybe security because they were doing the big stage scene for in support of people who had showed up for the March of Our Lives presentation. So like, comment, and subscribe. Give me your thoughts and feedback on the whole issue. But I thought that this was very important to bring out because if you want the violence to cease, you really want the violence to cease, you're going to not look at one group or one particular area or neighborhood or one incident and only focus on it. You're going to look at everything as a whole and evaluate it and say, you know, there is a lot of gun violence happening. It's not just happening at a church. It's not just happening at a school. It's not just happening in Chicago. It's happening in a lot of places. It's happening in a lot of places, but it is happening to a lot of different people, not just one group of folks, but it's happening to a lot of people. But it is happening to a magnitude, a large magnitude. It seems as though that it is happening disproportionately to a specific selected group, where it just seems like we can no longer say these are just isolated incidences. And so it's happening, you know, it has happened in churches that happen to be churches where it could be white people, it could be Black people, it has happened at schools, it could be, you know, anybody, but we're seeing it happening to a selected group to where the outcry for the same help, the same support is not viewed the same way as what happened at Parkland. And so I noticed that when people started mentioning about, you know, what about other communities where this kind of stuff happens regularly, that's when they started, you know, putting in the photos of the Black kids. It seemed like putting them trying to put them more to the front, you know, so that people could think, oh, well, we're not racist. And isn't that what, you know, as people of color, we've experienced when you are dealing with people who do have bias and who do have racism, they tend to try to use things like Martin Luther King. What would he do? You know, when clearly, I guess they think even young people are stupid. Like we don't ever read, you know, we're not ever going to investigate what treatment really happened to Martin Luther King. How was he really treated? How was he really, you know, viewed by these people who always want to bring his name up? And then they even had the audacity to have the granddaughter of Coretta Scott and King and Martin Luther King show up and make a statement, make more than a statement. Actually, she did like a chant as well, where she pretty much, they used her for their cause. And it almost feels as like an insult where they, you know, like if it happens in their neighborhood, if it happens to people that look like them, now we need help. We need to stand together and we need to eliminate the violence. But when it happens in a community where it's, you know, a higher concentration of Black people, you know, you don't have that same show of support. Only it's viewed as a local matter. It's not a national matter when it really is a national matter. And so, and this is why you have groups like Black Lives Matter. This is why you have people that are making, you know, commentary videos. This is why you have people who are writing articles about how they feel about the social divide and society as a whole, that it is not showing the same types of extension of care and of empathy towards people who are poor, people who are people of color. It seems as though we have a battle and rally cry for people who are white. And then when it's people of color, oh, it's their fault. Oh, you have to go and hire private, doctors and investigators just to get the truth out of what really happened if someone was murdered that you were close to or a loved one. And so it's happening all too often. And so this right here doesn't sit well with me at all. I would think that these people were pretty much, staged as to what to do. And they've kind of heard and read up on what could happen. And they've been scripted on what to say and what not to say. And even if they make mistakes on, what they intended to say, and the first thing they said was what they intended to say, and then they get caught up, and then they find out, oh, don't say that, because then they're gonna look at you guys as the bullies. So they have to change their story, but I don't know that this whole thing looks good either at all. But what I wanted to add to this is the NRA is what they're battling against. But because of what I've said in previous videos, that this March of Our Lives, those kids talking about gun control is only going to spark more people to buy guns. Lo and behold, look at the article. NRA saw spike in donations following the Parkland shooting. And this is in the Hill. So the National Rifle Association benefited from the spike in donations following the deadly shooting last month at Parkland, Florida High. Federal Election Commission filings showed that the organization's political victory fund garnered slightly less than $248,000 in donation January. So in February, that figure was more than triple to $779,062. The February totals show a sharp increase in the same month when the NRA faced intense criticism following February 14th shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which left 17 people dead. In the days and the weeks after the shooting, the students who survived the shooting sharply criticized the NRA and urged politicians to stop accepting campaign money, which is heavily, heavily funded. The government is heavily funded with our NRA money. And so I said that in previous videos as well. I expressed that. So it actually is playing out to the very things that I've been saying. And it's true. It also brings out the crazy people. And so I will pull up an article about that pretty soon. But it goes on to read that contributions in the time frame nearly doubled from the first half of the month. So a sharp increase was first reported by the Center for Responsive Politics. And so while the NRA was briefly went silent online after the Parkland shooting, the group increased its online advertising spending in weeks following the shooting sixfold. So the group has spoken out against any new gun legislation since the shooting and has directly criticized the students who organized the last weekend's march of the March of Our Lives. So in response to the Parkland shooting, the Trump administration has taken steps to ban bump stocks and accessories that allow certain weapons to fire at a more rapid rate, sign off on funding for improved background checks, and has urged states to pass gun legislation. So the Trump administration takes steps when it comes to the Parkland shooting incident, which really is more of an isolated incident than Black men being gunned down by police officers. But they didn't take no time to do something about this issue. And in a previous video, I stated that Sarah Huckabee Sanders told people in several articles, her quotes, I'm paraphrasing, that the incidences happening to Black males, Black females, or Black people in Black communities being policed, and if they're murdered or gunned down, it is more a local matter. It's not the White House's matter. So I had to add that in there again. So, however, Congress has not taken action on enacting universal background checks, raising the age requirement to purchase a rifle, or banning assault weapons, each of which some Parkland students have called for. And so that is the NRA right there, or at least probably people that are a part of the NRA. And so when you look up Nicholas Cruz, he is getting mail, and he's getting a lot of fan mail. So I'm just telling you, this is what has happened as a result of the March of Our Lives. It has not made things better. It's made things far more worse, just as I pretty much stated it would. And so I pretty much predicted this. Parkland shooter attracts a flock of crazed teenage girls who send him letters and photos and money. And one left this comment: "Your eyes are beautiful and your freckles on your face make you so handsome." And that's what one fan wrote. "I'm really skinny and I have a 34C sized." I don't even want to go into that. So it's really crazy right now. And so messages that are coming on greeting cards and envelopes are covered in hand-drawn hearts and have photos of Hello Kitty filters and shots of cleavage. So he's getting nude photos from people who are attracted to him. There are so many. They're stacked higher than college textbooks. Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz hasn't seen them yet, though, because he's on a suicide watch. So Cruz has a growing number of female fans and some male fans too. They adore him and send him salacious messages and scantily clad photographs, according to the Sun Sentinel. And so this is on Oxygen Crime. But the letters offer friendship, encouragement, and they've also sent money. So his fans are even donating money in his commissary on his books for jail. So February 14, Uber dropped off Cruz off at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Within 10 minutes, 19 students were dead. So Cruz allegedly confessed to the crime, according to CNN. So now the crazed fans have appeared. "I reserve the right to care about you, Nicholas," wrote one woman from Texas. Another wrote, "Your eyes are so beautiful and your freckles in your face, they make you so handsome." She says that she's white with big brown eyes, and I'm really skinny and she gives her breast size. And so he's getting all this weird, crazy mail, but they won't allow him to see it. So from Chicago, 9 photos, one of cleavage and one of a skimpy bikini with a popsicle in her mouth. That's one of the photos. And another with a shot of her backside, and she's bent over. And so it's getting really, really crazy. So one card featuring a cat on the front is from New York, and then it's from a man with a man and a bushy gray mustache, and he's enclosed photos of himself, the wheel of his white 1992 Nissan convertible. So these are the people that it's bringing out. And so what other things could happen behind all of this? More copycat shooters, more crazy incidences, more people deciding to buy guns because they fear that their amendment rights are going to be infringed on. There's going to be more deaths, possibly, because somebody's going to be turned on to this, and they're going to say, well, if he did it and he's getting so much attention, why don't I? And so that's the way these kind of crazy people come from out of everywhere. So it says, I know you could use a good friend right now. That's somebody that is trying to get in touch with them. So one letter from an 18-year-old in New York, and no one else is dealing with your demons, meaning maybe featuring them could be the beginning of your meaning, friend. Okay, so I'm just jumping around here. The ending is adorned with hearts colored in pink ink. So these are the kind of people and it's very scary because these people, they haven't done anything yet. And they're out there and sending him letters and doing this weird stuff. So there are Facebook pages of support and hashtags on Twitter. There are even merchandise being sold at $2 online on behalf of him. And so Cruz won't get the suggestive letters. Obscene mail or threats are screened and returned to senders. So Cruz he's represented by public defender Howard Finkelstein, who worries that boys and girls are starting to view Cruz in an elevated way. And so the letters shake me up because they're written by regular, everyday teenage girls from across the nation. That scares me. It's very perverted. And so that's the whole article right there in a nutshell. So this is some people who I believe were seen here that had their own little marches on behalf of gun violence. And so I'm still viewing this. I'm just looking at all of the different protests that are going on all over. There had been protests. There's a lot of different people, a lot of different neighborhoods, a lot of different people who are concerned about the same issues, but they're not mentioned. So it's just sad that all of this is happening. And, it's like I said from before, I didn't want to be right about this. I kind of wanted to see something good come out of this, but it isn't. It's actually worse. And it's just like what I was saying. By those kids doing that march, thinking they're doing something to eliminate sale of guns or gun violence, they've only opened up a Pandora's box. So with that being said, and I'm flipping through, all of these issues have not been good at all. And so I just think that it makes matters worse. It's not helpful, and it has caused a lot of turmoil. So with that being said, it's opened up a lot of debate on all ends. Like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.